could you describe your role and your past work in Symantec for the audience?
Sure. I love leading Symantec research labs. I joined the lab over a decade ago, leading the longest term research in Europe and the US, and then leading the advanced concepts team, building a new product every year. Now, after a few years leading mainstream product engineering for endpoint protection.cloud and Norton Mobile Security, as well as some of the IoT teams, I'm very glad to be leading the whole lab.
What does your typical day look like?
Oh, well, most days I balance my time between talking with members of the lab on some of the exciting work that they're doing, as well as talking with other labs to find great partners for collaboration with academic university research, as well as other industrial partners, and staying in touch with the market through customers and analysts. But today, given that it's a Friday, not too long after this, I'll be heading home to spend some time with family.
That's great. In terms of the long-term time, what kind of growth opportunities did you find at Symantec that you couldn't find in your university?
Well, so Symantec is a great place to really protect the world at scale. I mean, code written here often protects millions or hundreds of millions of people. So the research that we do, we really feel like we're often protecting billions of people, often because at this point we've embedded security now into over 1 billion different Internet of Things devices. So really not just doing world-class research and publishing in top conferences, but that chance to make a difference in so many people's lives so quickly, so directly is just great. It's one of the things that I really love about Symantec.
To give a little background knowledge for the audience, could you tell me a little bit about what you did before Symantec?
Oh, sure. So before Symantec, right out of college, at first I was an officer in the United States Air Force, where I had the pleasure and the honor of starting to collaborate with great universities like MIT, Carnegie Mellon, and Purdue in the area of security. And then from there, I got to go to DARPA. And DARPA is really a unique place. For anyone who gets the opportunity, I highly recommend going. But for most people, that usually comes later in their careers.
Yeah. So how did you decide to move from DARPA Air Force to a private sector like Symantec?
Well, so DARPA was a lot of fun, but the broader public sector is quite different. After a decade of public service in the government, both the military and then as a civil servant, I wanted to see how a world-leading commercial organization ran on the inside. And that's really been a ton of fun here. I wanted to do that in part because so much of the research we'd done at DARPA was being commercialized to protect millions and billions of people, and moving a step closer to those customers. I was really hoping and wanting to accelerate the rate at which such innovation, such great research really reached people and made a difference in their lives.
Mm. You've seen the recent history of security, and right now you're heading the research lab, so you know how the security is going. What are the trends in security industry, and what should a student learn to be a stronger job candidate?
That's really a big question. I mean, I think the trends in the security industry are our first question, and then what should a job candidate factor in is another really big question. So starting with the security industry, we really need to start with what's happening in computing in general. So we see this a digital world around us dissolving from just glass and screens and browsers and the like into a very physical, tangible world of lights and heating and ventilation, air conditioning, checkout processes. Really very interactive world of really enchanted, smart things around us. And we also see things changing from a desktop data center era really into sort of a cloud-driven world where it's really our identities that connect us across all of our devices to all of our information. So these are some really big changes in computing with implications inside security and well beyond. Fold in progress in big areas like artificial intelligence, as well as threats getting increasingly sophisticated year after year. And that counter-move game of security seems to be accelerating faster and faster, which for me and those of us in security is a ton of fun. One of the things that I think is really unique about security is you're not just beating the competition, you're actually catching and stopping attackers. And so you have a real chance to be a real force for good in the world, in probably one of the biggest battles of good versus evil that any computer scientist really ever gets a chance to play in. So in terms of advice to job seekers, I would say first find your passion. Find the things where you excel, and then look for the places which you'll enjoy, places which will really nurture those strengths and really help you thrive. Many of the other things, after you find those real strengths and how they can make a difference in the world, other things like money, often fall in place. But if you aim in your first jobs out of school, whether it's leaving an undergraduate program or leaving with a PhD, if you reach first for the money, you might make more money in the short term, but you'll make less money in the long term. Whereas if you really find something that you're uniquely wonderful at, that can really make an impact on the world, and find some place that'll nurture that and help you really excel to be the best in that at the world, you'll do much better, I think, in all regards, in the long run.
Thank you for the great advice.
I hope it's great advice. It certainly worked okay for me so far.
Let's talk about when you were a student yourself, when you were a job seeker, probably yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do as a student that helped you be in the position that you are in now?
Well, so a lot of it, I think, is a combination of curiosity and diligence. I mean, I say study hard, study everything, be curious, learn everything top to bottom, from the lowest levels of lectons and dopants up through not only just chips and hardware computer architectures, but programming languages, network protocols, the high-level abstractions for distributed computing. I mean, everything top to bottom. That was what I did, and that's what I loved. I'm not the deepest in any one of those areas, but really seeing how they all fold together and complement each other and depend on each other has been really, it's helped me, and it's helped me solve a lot of, I think, important problems over the years.
Now, lastly, talking about the company that you work at, Symantec, how would you describe its culture, and how is it different from other employers?
I love Symantec. Most of us are very passionate about protecting people. That really helps unify us into a single team in ways that I don't necessarily see at other companies. Of course, you'll find exceptions anywhere, but having that shared mission really helps us make the world a better place and helps us have more fun doing it together.
That's awesome. Thank you for your time today, Brian.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Cheers.